Okay, now we're recording. So, what we're going to get into tonight is managing our lineup cards, dealing with substitutes, courtesy runners, and DHs. There's no one specific way to do this. The important thing is that you capture the information that you need to so that in the event that you have to write an ejection report or in the event that your game gets canceled or suspended and somebody else has to pick up your job as the plate guy, or even if you come back the next day or a week later, to make sure that what you have, what the book has, and everything matches up and you can continue the game as you need to. There's no one right way to do this. There's as many methods as there are probably umpires. It's just a matter of making sure you get all the right stuff. So the first time that we're going to deal with a lineup card is at the plate meeting, obviously. When you receive the lineup card, you need to make sure that there are slots in all names and numbers in all 9 slots, or 10 if they're using a DH. And if they make sure they don't list the same number or the same name twice. It's not uncommon to have brothers playing, so you have 2 guys with the same last name. If that's the case, make sure that you at least have a first initial that goes with it. As you should all be aware, it's the name that matters, not the number. Now that said, we all use numbers for shortcuts, but officially it's the name that matters. So make sure you don't have any duplicate names, and then also check again for numbers. If they have a DH listed, just confirm with the head coach that what they have and what they intend for a DH matches what they wrote down. Just simply say, hey, Bob, you got Smith hitting the 5-hole for Jones. Is that correct? Make him confirm that that is correct. And here's a case where they've got McCarthy DHing for the pitcher in the 4-hole, Hayward. That's one way you may get it. It's not uncommon to have the DH there listed in the 4 spot, and the person that's being DH'd for could be listed at the bottom, or in some cases they put it off to the side. Just as long as you can identify where everybody goes correctly. Okay, as you know, lineup cards become official once they've been exchanged, verified, and accepted at the pregame conference. Okay, you should not take the lineup card until all the substitutes are listed. We had a discussion about this in the UDP class. There is no penalty for not listing substitutes. However, simply ask the coach to please write down his substitutes and give the lineup card back to you. If little Johnny hasn't showed up and head coach Bob didn't write little Johnny's name down, and little Johnny shows up in the 3rd inning, he's still a legal sub. We're still going to take care of him when he comes in. But just try to get the lineup cards, or try to get the substitutes listed, not only for your benefit, but for the other team as well. They should have that as well. All the rules that relate to substitutions are listed here. Substitutions, conferences, batting positions are all right there. You can see that shortcut to some of those rules. Those are rules that you need to be familiar with. Like any other rule, you don't have to memorize it, but you need to have a good working knowledge of all of the verbiage that's in there and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Definition for what is a legal sub, what's an illegal substitute, what is an unreported sub, when do we charge conferences, when is a charged conference over, can a guy have 3 consecutive charged conferences in a row, all that kind of neat stuff. And we went through batting position and batting out of order the other night at the meeting at Manchester. Okay, so your subs are typically listed on your lineup card, just as your starters are, maybe underneath or to the side, however they put it on there. When a substitute comes in, the head coach may just come up to you and say, hey, I'll give you a number. Hey, number 21 is going in for the pitcher, or they may give you a last name, or they may just stand out there and go, hey, Tony, we got a new arm. Okay, you figure out what number it is. You can look up, he's got a number in the front and back. and just write his number down. Notify the other team if you need to. And if they have a PA system, if they have a press box, you just can wave up to them, point to the pitcher. They'll announce who the new pitcher is, and move on. Hang on, I got a cough. Sorry about that. There's some magic words. Please and thank you goes a long way. So once they give you the substitute, say thank you, write it down, move on. Jerry, how come your face is on my screen?
I don't know.
Mess me up. Okay. This is an example of a lineup card that I may or may not have seen recently. As you can see, it's a 10-man lineup. DH in the 4-hole. Brandon was hitting for Brian. Brian was pitching. And you can see my chicken scratch there, and we'll go into what that looks like and what all that stuff means as we go along. But that's just a lineup card. Generally in high school baseball, you're not going to get one that's that well printed and has everybody's number and name at the bottom. Sometimes you will, it just depends on the school. On the right-hand side, you can see that's my shorthand for defensive conferences and offensive conferences. As you can see in this one, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, they had one in the 4th and one in the 7th. When you're taking substitutions, just remember projected subs are prohibited. So when the head coach comes up and goes, hey, 13's batting for 7, but 7's going to re-enter. Just understand that 7 may or may not re-enter. And if he doesn't, that's okay. That's legal. Coach doesn't have to abide by what he tells you he's going to do. So just confirm whenever, if a coach gives you a projected sub like that, just confirm with him at the next half an inning, hey, did 7 go back in? Yes or no? Just confirm with him. Courtesy runners. Courtesy runners need to be written down on your lineup card. They're kind of like substitutes, but they're not. And the lineup card that I just showed you didn't use courtesy runners, so I didn't write down how to do it. What I do is I just simply write PCR or CCR. Courtesy runner for the pitcher, courtesy runner for the catcher. And I write down what number goes in for them. Just remember, a courtesy runner has to be an eligible sub. He cannot be someone that's already been used in the game and is out of the game. And that person being a courtesy runner does not affect their eligibility to do anything else in the game.
Mark,
go ahead.
Do you put that on the back of the lineup card similar to the way you did your trips?
I do, yes. And we'll get into a little of that in a couple of slides here. But yeah, I just write on the back of my lineup card, I write a D, an O, I write courtesy numbers or courtesy runners, and I write any kind of warnings or anything else that we end up having to do. And like I said, we'll get into that in just a minute. Excuse me. But just remember, the other important thing is a courtesy runner, once they've established that they're going to use a courtesy runner, that courtesy runner, if number 25 is running for the pitcher, number 25 can only run for the pitcher in that game. He can run for every different pitcher that's in the game, but he can only run for the pitcher. So if we have 7 pitchers in the game and number 25 is the courtesy runner in the first inning for Jones, and then in the 3rd inning, Smith is pitching, number 25 can courtesy run for him as well. But he can only run for the pitcher or catcher of record. Courtesy runner can only run for the pitcher or catcher of record. So if Johnson's catching, and in the 1st inning, we let number 32 run for Johnson. Okay? In the 5th inning, at the end of the 4th inning, Johnson is still catching. But in the 5th inning, the coach tells you that somebody else is going to catch. Well, if number 32 can't run for that other guy until he's played the defensive position. So if does that make sense? You can't. He has to. He can only run for the guy who's just been playing the defensive position. Is there a question? Okay.
This is where, by the way, this is where the high school rule comes in. There are no projected substitutes. So if a kid comes in to hit and he doesn't go into the catcher's slot, for example, he can't go in and hit for the second baseman and the coach come out to you and say, hey, he's going to be the catcher next half inning. I want to run for him. He went in for the second baseman. He's not the catcher. You can't run for him. So that's what the high school rule means when you talk about no projected substitutes.
Right. The other thing, and where I was trying to get to, and I lost my frame of mind there for a second. If I'm catching, if Yoder's catching, and Baresh comes and he's going to pinch hit for me, okay, when Baresh gets on base because he's not such a great runner, we're going to let Tony come in and run for him as a courtesy runner. No, we're not, because Jerry hasn't caught yet. He's not the catcher of record. He has not played the defensive position. He's simply a pinch hitter for the first catcher. He has not played the position yet, so he cannot be courtesy run for. Hopefully we cleared that up. Okay, next slide. Okay, conferences. Anytime a coach comes out, calls timeout, stops play, other than for injury, we're going to have a charged conference. In high school baseball, defensive conferences, they get three free ones. They can be used at any time. They can be used 3 times in the same batter. They can be used 3 times for the same pitcher. They can be used 3 times in the same inning. Doesn't matter. They get 3. On the 4th one, pitcher's got to come out. Offensively, they can have 1 per inning. So they're going to talk about a bunt, whatever. Coach calls timeout, wants to talk to the hitter. You write that down. Write down the inning that it is. That way, if they got nobody out and then, they've batted around and they want to talk about it again, no, you can't do that in the same inning. 1 per inning on offense, 3 free ones in the game on defense, and they can be used at any time. In high school baseball, if we go to extra innings, you get 1 per inning on offense, 1 per inning on defense. They do not carry over. So if they've used none in the first 7 innings and we go to the 8th, they don't get 4, they get 1. That's all they get. For defensive conferences, some guys will give a coach a number. When he's come out his second free trip, some guys will say, hey, coach, that's 2. I'm not personally a big fan of that, but I suppose it's up to your taste. Tony, do you ever do that?
No, not typically. I wait until he has his last one, and I'll go, hey, that was your 3rd one. But again, as they say on the internet, your mileage may vary. You just have to be careful and pick your spots, because the guy's not likely to be really happy when he walked out there to talk to the pitcher, and you interjecting yourself into, hey, that's 2 trips might yield a no bleep. I know how many freaking trips I have, and then you're in a mess of it. So for you guys that think, oh, I have to do that because it's my responsibility, they're also responsible for knowing how many trips they took.
Right.
So it's a tough line to walk. You got to feel the pulse of the game. There's no right or wrong answer there.
To me, that generally falls into the category of, if I don't have to say something, it's probably better that I don't. So I would generally choose to not say anything about visits.
Wait a minute.
Hey, easy over there. I just think it's better to leave that one alone for the most part. But that's just me. Here,
After many, many, many years of learning otherwise.
what's that? You love learning the hard way. Again, here's the back of that lineup card that I just showed you, and you can see in this game that they took a defensive conference in the 4th inning with 1 out. That's what that 4 and the 1 above it is. And in the 7th inning with no outs.
Can I also make a suggestion there too?
Sure.
It wouldn't hurt for you to write down the number of the pitcher there as well, so that you're sure which pitcher was when the guy came out there.
That's a good point.
Because that could kind of come up and bite you later if you have an inning that's really crazy and you don't know. In high school, it's less important, but in youth games and otherwise, where there's only 2 trips per inning to each pitcher, it might not be a bad idea to write the number of the pitcher next to it. And again, that's in high school, it isn't going to matter, but for other games, it might.
And again, this is just your mileage may vary as well. As you can see on this particular lineup card in that upper right-hand corner, I wrote what looks like an S and a B. That stands for the name of the team. It's just my chicken scratch. The reason why I do that is because I fold my lineup card into thirds and I stick them in my little holder so that I don't have to be flipping it back and forth if I just need to write down a conference. So I write the initials or the name of the team or, whatever on the top corner so that I know that I'm writing the correct stuff on the right lineup card. Sometimes I'll write the catcher's name or I'll write the head coach's name if I'm not familiar with him. Just as an easy reference right there on the back of the card, because like I said, I use a little book style lineup card holder and I put the visitor on the left side and the home on the right side because that's, you read left to right in the top of the inning and the bottom of the inning. So that's just the way I do it. Again, no right or wrong way. That's just the way I do it. Okay, the other piece of equipment or another piece of information that you have to write down is warnings. Warnings, restrictions, and ejections. By rule, an official warning in high school has to be written down and it comes with a restriction. So you definitely need to write down everything about that warning. You want to include, anytime you have a warning or a restriction or an ejection, you want to include absolutely everything. The inning, the count, the batter, the pitcher, everything that you can write down needs to be written down. Okay. If you have an ejection, as soon as once you issue the warning and he goes off the bench to dugout restriction, if he keeps on going and you end up ejecting him, once you say okay, you're done, start writing everything that comes out of his mouth. If he keeps on going, start jotting it down. Write what he says. If he says you MFer, you horse shit, horse bleep, blah, 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 whatever he writes or whatever he says, write it down. The more you get, the easier it is later on to write your ejection report. And there's no sugarcoating an ejection report. You write whatever they say.
Mark, that's a great point. Mark just censored himself. If he writes, that's fucking horse shit and you're fucking awful, and people can hear it in the stands, you write in your report, he yelled, that's fucking horse shit and you're fucking awful. You write those words down. You're not doing anybody any good by pretending he didn't say those words. Write them down and let them stand where they will.
Absolutely. A thing that was told me one time is, to the best of your ability, write word for word what a coach says, paraphrase what you say. We generally get ourselves in trouble more often than not on a baseball field, not by making a bad call or not by anything like that. It's for what we say. So when you're writing an ejection report or when you're writing stuff down, you can paraphrase yourself, but at the same time, you need to own up to what you say because it's going to come out. whether it comes out in a phone call with Greg, whether it comes out as a rebuttal from the coach and the athletic director, there will come a point in time where either in writing or on a phone call, you're going to have to stand up and say what you said. So if you let some language go that you shouldn't have, you better suck it up. You're going to have to admit to it. And, it is what it is. There may be repercussions for that, but that's just something that, we get preached at all the time. You have to be professional. You have to be respectful. And sometimes that's hard when they're telling you that you're freaking terrible and that you're horseshit or whatever. There is no excuse for us using that language back to them. But, sometimes it happens and you're going to have to own it. Tony, Jerry,
Hey, Mark.
Chris, anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I was going to ask, are you going to go over what constitutes an offensive and defensive conference later on in the slides?
No, I can go back to that.
There was a question asked about what constitutes an offensive conference, and I thought that would also be good to hit what constitutes a defensive conference.
Okay, I thought
Mark, hang on one second real quick. Let me address one other thing that you said, and I want to double down on it. If you cuss on the field and Greg calls you and asks you if you cussed on the field, say yes. If you said, and it wasn't even at somebody, if somebody overheard you say, hey, don't let him fucking do that to you, and you said it in a conversation with a plate guy next to somebody, and they overheard and they called, and somebody in the stands overheard you and called, say, yes, you did it. Don't lie about it. I've been there, done that. Again, it's really not fair in one way, but don't cuss on the field at all. We can never defend, cursing on the field by us. They can do it. They can do it all they want. There's nothing we can do about it. If you don't like that, you'll have to find a different hobby, but it's just the way it is for us at all levels.
I could say, and this is a tangent to that, but I was in a game a number of years ago, and at this point, I don't remember what happened, but I made a comment probably to myself because I don't think I was really talking to anybody, but I don't know, it was an error, it was a bad play, it was something, I don't remember. And I just made one of those comments that sometimes you make to yourself like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And the coach heard me. The first base coach heard me, and he thought that I was talking about one of his players. I wasn't, swear to God, I wasn't talking about one of his players, but whatever it was that I said could have been taken that way, absolutely. And I got a phone call. Greg said, hey, did you say that? And I went, yeah, probably. Well, this is what happened. And he, relayed what happened. And I said, yeah, that sounds like probably something that I would have said at that point. I can tell you that I wasn't directed at anybody, but just the point is that sometimes you say things and they're heard. Whether it's a parent, whether it's a coach, whether it's a player, they get heard. And somebody will tell somebody, and the next thing you know, you're getting a phone call. So, all right, enough of that. Let me go back to Jerry. What was the question then? What constitutes an offense and defensive conference? Is that what the question was?
Yes, that's correct.
I don't know if there's an easy way to say it. Basically, anytime a coach asks for timeout to go talk to a player, if it's not it's a conference.
So the batter steps out of the box, walks a couple feet towards the third base coach. Third base coach walks a few feet down to them. They don't really meet, but they kind of exchange some stuff. Is that a conference?
Well, if a batter steps out of the box and starts turning around looking at the coach, I'm going to go, hey, in the box. Remember, batter's box rule. I need you to keep 1 foot in for me, please. Hey, 1 foot for me, please. That's usually So if they get together, right? They're standing
in close proximity and talking,
But
we're going to count that as an offensive trip.
absolutely, 100%.
Okay. And I think the rule book says that the conference starts when the defensive conference starts when the coach crosses the foul line. Is that correct?
In high school baseball, yes.
In high school, yes, that's correct.
The foul line is the delineation of for a defensive conference. When the coach crosses the foul line, we're having a conference.
Yep. Okay. Good. Thanks.
Any other questions or
Nope. We got it.
Okay. Okay, we covered that. In this particular case, for demonstration purposes, I went back and added this. This didn't really happen in my game yesterday on this lineup card. But if I was going to write a warning, that's how I would write it. W, warning, balls and strikes, top fifth. And since it's on the back of this lineup card, it went to that coach, the SB coach, whose name was Matt, by the way. So if I'm going to write a warning, that's how I do it. Okay. Delay anytime the game is stopped. Rain, lightning, darkness, anything that causes you to either temporarily or for good, for the evening, for the day, stop a game, you need to write down absolutely everything. Why you stopped, what time it was, what inning it is, how many outs, what's the score, what's the count, who's at bat, who's pitching, everything. Because again, if the game is suspended, you may not be the guy that goes back. And in some cases, Greg will want you to take a picture of your lineup card, send it to him, and he will forward it to whoever's going to work that game tomorrow or next week. If you've already got a game, you're probably not going back. Somebody else will go finish it. And you never know at the time that the game is stopped whether the game is going to be replayed in full or whether they're going to start from there and move on. So you need to write down absolutely everything. Don't get into a conversation with an athletic director or a coach about what is or is not going to happen. It's not our call. Games that are suspended or stopped or whatever, those decisions are made by administrations and all those other folks. It's not our job. We're there to officiate that game, and when that game stops, if it's not completed, we write it down. When they say we're done, we go home.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
You want them to write down the defensive first batter of the next inning, too.
That's great.
So who's going to lead?
Everybody understand that? That's a great point.
Dropped out. I don't know if it was you or me or what.
Chris said another thing that, and I didn't write it down here, is you want to make sure if the game is going to stop and you're not going to finish it that night, make sure you also write down who the next batter is at the top of the inning or at the next at bat for the team that's currently on defense. That's a great point. So in this case, where I've got right there, lightning delay, all that information, you'd also write, next half inning, Atlee's batter is number 12 or whatever. Because if they're in the top
And that probably means you're going to have to go find somebody, which is fine.
What's that, Kyle?
You're probably going to have to go find somebody to get that information,
Right.
which is fine.
Yeah, you'll have
Go
to
find them.
Okay. Any other comments about that? Anybody? Okay. Again, lineup cards come in various sizes and shapes. Sometimes you'll get a whole sheet of paper. Sometimes you get a tiny little thing. Just do whatever you got to do to fold it and keep it however you keep it. I would highly encourage you to get some kind of a lineup card holder. especially if you sweat a lot. I would also recommend that you get some kind of an all-weather pen and something that doesn't necessarily have a sharp point. I use a Sharpie. It'll write in any kind of weather, and it doesn't run or fade when I'm sweating, and I don't poke holes in a lineup card like you do with a pencil or a ballpoint pen.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, somebody brought up a good point that a couple of times a year when we have Triple Crown in town, weather will get a game and the game will be continued the next day. So this situation doesn't just apply to high school. It often applies to some of these tournaments that we work too. So keep that in mind. If you're handed a lineup, you need to run it like you do all the time. Don't just go through the motions.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think to say that, but yeah, this is. I don't. If I got a lineup card, this is how I do it. I don't care if it's a middle school game or a Division I college game or whatever. It doesn't matter. I do it the same way. Every lineup card. Okay. Like I said, there's no one right or wrong way. If there's plenty of room on the front of the lineup card and you want to write all your stuff on there, fine, have at it. If you want to fold it over right on the back, have at it. Some guys like the hard carbon copy pieces. If you get a duplicate one, some guys like the original one. Whatever you like, do it how you want to do it. But this is just the information that you need to capture throughout the course of a game on your lineup card. No matter how you do it, this is just the information that you have to capture. Here's just a picture I took of a lineup card holder. Actually, I think that's Mike Mackey's from last year or a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. His folds over and he stuffs it in the top. This is just another example of a lineup card. You never know what kind of lineup card you're going to get. This was the back of that one that I just showed you. That's how Mike does it, which, you know what, Mike, I think, or it was either Mike or Matthew Pierman, and looks pretty similar to how I do it. Probably pretty similar to how a lot of guys do it. Like I said, there's no correct way to do it. The only wrong way is to not do it properly and not capture the information that you need. All right, we'll jump on. Anybody have any questions about that? We answer them all, Jerry, whoever's looking at the...
Yeah, I fielded the questions. I think we're good, unless anyone throws one in real quick.
Cool. All right. The next thing we have is this video.
Hey, Mark.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna throw one quick thing in. Hey, guys, those of you who are not used to doing lineup cards and everything, you're gonna feel like you're taking an eternity to capture this information, and the game is waiting on you. You're right. The game is waiting on you, but you can't move forward until you get this information down correctly. Take your time, get it right. The game's going nowhere without you. Just get it done and move on.
That said, try to do it a little quicker than Kyle did it a couple years ago at Cosby when Tim Lowry was giving him the evil eye out of the dugout because Kyle was writing down the kid's name, address, phone number, shoe size, and all that kind of stuff.
I thought that information was valuable.
That was pretty funny. That was freaking funny.
Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's always fun to tease Kyle because it's a sport at ODUA. It's actually in the, for you guys that are new, it's actually in the bylaws to tease Kyle. But in all seriousness, if they're waving in a substitute and you're like, nah, I'm going to do it later because the score is blah, blah, or whatever, don't. If they make a lineup card change, pull your lineup, write it down, make the change. And by the way, for you guys that haven't done this before, it is unnecessary for you to walk over to dugouts and tell the other people. they see what's going on. You can wave over and say to a coach, hey, number 12, or say his name if he tells you his name, Jones. Don't walk to dugouts with lineup card changes. And any level of game you do, if it's mom keeping score at someplace, she'll figure it out because the kid has a uniform number on and he's up. Your responsibility is to record the change and make everyone at the ballpark aware, which means essentially kind of looking at the other team and going, hey, this guy's in the game with a point or something like that. But please make all your changes. There's nothing worse than finding out you didn't make a change because you were going to wait till the end of the inning to do it, and now you can't remember what guy went in where, and they made more than one change. So just make the changes. By rule, it is our job to keep track of the changes, whether we like it or not.
One of the fastest ways to let everybody know that you're brand new is to do exactly that kind of stuff. Walk over to the dugout to get baseballs, walk over to the dugout to make changes. If you treat adults like you're teaching them in a classroom, everybody knows that you're brand new. So they'll come to you, just like Tony said. They'll bring you balls. They'll figure out what the changes are. You just wave, point, do what you got to do. Okay, anything else on that? All right, let's, Tony, you want to do that video?
Yep, go ahead, crank around.
I see does that poll question that's sitting there apply to this?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Let me see. I don't think it does.
Okay.
No, that's a different. I think I copied it, so you can ignore that poll.
All right.
I didn't make a poll for this.
This is a play that just recently happened. You guys may have seen a shorter clip of this on Facebook. If you haven't, that's fine. But here is a great example of a play that we see all too often, and let's just roll through it here and see what you guys think while my dogs come running here and try to get underneath me. All right, here we go.
So I'll say right there, that's a 2-2 pitch that the hitter takes and throws the bat away. So I wanted to show the 2-2 pitch. We're paused a little bit right here.
Yep.
Yes, everybody, I know it's paused a little bit. We forgot to upload the video, so it's gonna be a little herky-jerky, but go ahead.
We'll show this a few times. Hopefully we'll get through the jerkiness of it. So that was the 2-2 pitch. I'm sorry, the 3-1 pitch.
I'm sorry, you're right, 3-1 pitch.
3-1 pitch that he thought was ball 4, and it wasn't, so he chucked his bat across there, and now he's got to do the walk of shame. So here's your 3-2 pitch.
We've got 3-2, no outs.
Runner on first, 3-2, no outs. So let's go back and see this whole sequence again. Here's the 3-1 pitch. Oh, got to do the walk of shame.
Notice he stayed in the batter's box. That time he did not.
So we didn't make a poll question on this, but how many, I don't know how we can ask this question. Look, let's just dispense with asking the question. The bottom line is, on this play right here, that's batter's interference for 2 reasons. One, he steps out of the box, even though he's given you the RCA dog look like he hasn't. But the other reason is because right here, pitch comes in, whether he thinks that's ball 4 or strike 3 or whatever, you can see his foot's out of the box, his head is coming out over the plate, and Homer chucks the bat right across where the catcher's throwing. And the throw's high, and the runner's safe. Now, the result of the play does not influence whether or not we call interference. It does play into whether or not we enforce interference at the end, but it does not. We don't judge interference by whether or not the catcher got the throw away, or whether or not the guy was out, or whether or not anything else happened. We judge interference because the batter does something to hinder or impede the catcher's ability to field a ball, catch the ball, and make a play. And that's exactly what this guy does, by stepping across and by throwing the bat in front. So in this case, with nobody out, and that being strike 3, we get the batter runner out. The batter out on strikes. So that's 1 out. And because he's already out, now the runner becomes out because of his interference. So we just went from 3-2, nobody out, to 2 outs and nobody on base. That's a call that, unfortunately, we see that more than we'd like to, but that's a call that a lot of guys just don't want to make. Anytime you make a call like that, batter's interference, forced play side interference, a coach is going to come out. You have to expect that. You have to know they're coming out, and that's why understanding and knowing the verbiage in the rules is important. When this coach comes out, he's going to give you all kinds of, but my guy did this, but my guy didn't do that, but he didn't touch the catcher, but blah, 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 all kinds of stuff. Coach, your guy came out of the box. He impeded the catcher's ability to make a play. Well, what do you mean he came out? He came out of the box. He came out of the box across the plate and impeded the catcher's ability to make a play. That's all you got to say.
Yoder and I had this situation yesterday.
Yep. He impeded the catcher's ability to make a play. That's it. That's the only phrase in that rule right there that you need to be able to say and repeat when a coach comes out. Kyle, go ahead. We had this yesterday.
We had it yesterday, and it was easy on mine because the batter made contact, but he swung and missed and struck out. The runner attempting to steal second. And the head coach came out, and he thought I was wrong. He thought him striking out didn't matter, and that the runner always goes back. So, and I told him, no, he's out. He struck out, so we have to get an out on the by the runner they're attempting to get out. He is now out because
for you guys that are wondering how or why, think about common sense and fair play. If we didn't get 2 outs on this play, every time a hitter struck out and there was a guy stealing the base, why not interfere, see if you could get away with it? And if you got away with it, great. If you didn't get away with it, they would just send the guy back. So if you have interference, you have to get an out, and the hitter is normally out, and you send the runner back. But since the hitter is out on strike 3, somebody else got to be out. So that somebody else who's out is going to be the base runner.
Right.
And remember, this rule does not require there to be intention. In fact, there are very few, if any, rules that require intentional interference. About the only one is with a thrown ball, but without going through all that, get in your rule book and find out what things require intentional interference and what things require unintentional interference.
All right.
All right, Yoder, you got anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. Do we answer all the questions? Anybody else have any questions or comments? Anything that we didn't make clear?
Nothing on the question pane.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
With like this situation happening that we have on the plate, and say he's not out for strike 3, but say the catcher gets the guy stealing for the 3rd out, would you like them to record who was at bat, for at that time. So then when they start the new inning coming up, that you know which batter should be up. So just in case of batting out of order.
That's not a bad idea. I can't say that I have ever done that. Just remember, if this is not strike three and this play happens, the batter's out and the runner's going to go back. Like Chris is saying, if this is the third out, it's not a bad idea to write who the next guy would be, or just if nothing else, just make a note of it. Look on your lineup card and realize, okay, what's this guy's number? 12, 24. Hey, number 24 just got called, got the interference, he's out. So whoever follows 24 would be the proper batter to start the next inning. All right. Tony, you got anything else? That's all I got.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, I'm going to stop.